Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here, and I'm back with another Canadian benefit update for you. And this one is a doozy, because just a couple of days ago, a CTV news article reported that tons of Canadians could be required to pay back the entirety, that's $14,000 potentially, of their CERB benefit, or Canadian Emergency Response benefit, that they started receiving way back in March. And just so you can know which article I'm talking about, it's this one right here, where it says that unclear wording of CERB eligibility means some recipients are asked to pay back everything. So obviously this has a lot of people scared and a little bit concerned, and I've been seeing comments in my comment section about people who may be in this situation asking like, hey Russell, what's going on here? Could you explain it? So that is exactly what we're going to do in today's video. We're going to do a deep dive on this story and talk about who could potentially be affected by this and how they can cope with having to pay back potentially $14,000 to the CRA that they may have already spent. Obviously, most people who applied for the CERB benefit needed to use the money just to survive. I mean, that was the whole point of the benefit, to help people make ends meet if they were laid off from work or were just struggling with this whole coronavirus pandemic. But now with people having to pay back $14,000 that they've already probably spent in the past, they're stuck in a pretty tricky financial position. So that's why we're talking about it today. The point of this channel is to bring information to Canadians as quickly and as accurately as possible so that they can set themselves up to live a more financially stable and wealthy future. So if you're interested in staying up to date in that sort of thing, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because I'm constantly bringing updates just like this one. Now let's get into this story. In order to understand what's happening now, we need to do a little recap on what was happening back in March when they were first putting out this CERB program. Again, you'll remember that's just when all the news was going crazy and we didn't really know the severity of what this pandemic would be, so everyone was panicking a little bit. The government, along with the other parties in the House of Commons, quickly brought forward legislation to make the CERB a thing. It was called the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit Act. So all of the political parties more or less agreed that they thought it was a good idea to bring this sort of benefit money to Canadians to help them with this unprecedented situation. And they wanted to do it quickly, so they fast-tracked it through the House of Commons and through the Senate so that it could be applied to Canadians as quickly as possible. So once this act was passed, it was then up to the CRA to be able to create the online infrastructure so that people could go on quickly and apply for their money and get their direct deposit as quickly as possible. Again, that's a huge priority at this point. And the webpage that they made was pretty comprehensive. You'll remember back from my earlier videos, right when this was all coming out, I covered that information that was provided on the website. And it was pretty in-depth, and it had a lot of details about who would be eligible and who wouldn't be eligible. But despite the CRA's best efforts to keep this as clear and concise as possible, this is actually where the confusion started for this story that we're currently experiencing right now. And it all has to do with one of the eligibility requirements, and that's the requirement that you would have to have made $5,000 in the past year or in the entirety of 2019 in order to be eligible. Just so you can have a clear understanding of exactly what was said on this webpage, let's give it a read right now. So this is from the CRA's website, and this is the first place where you see this $5,000 requirement. And the exact wording is, you had to have had employment and or self-employment income of at least $5,000 in 2019 or in the 12 months prior to the date of their application, and you can't have quit your job voluntarily, along with these other requirements. Now, the key word that we're going to be talking about a lot more is this word right here, self-employment or employment income. And it has a lot to do with the interpretation of this word, why people are getting so confused now about why they may be required to pay back all of this money. And just so you can be 100% in the know about all of the information that the CRA has given on this eligibility requirement, this is from a CRA webpage that's sort of like a Q&A about the CERB, and it says that the $5,000 includes all employment and self-employment income. This includes, among others, tips you have declared as income, non-eligible dividends, honoraria like nominal amounts paid to emergency service volunteers, and royalties paid to artists. If you are not eligible for employment insurance, you may also include maternity and parental benefits you received from an unemployment insurance program and or similar benefits paid in Quebec under the QPIP plan. So here we are. The bill's just been passed, and now the CRA has set up this website that has your eligibility requirements on it, and everybody who's planning on applying for the CERB is reading through these requirements and sort of trying to figure out if they're eligible for it before they actually go to apply. Many people who were self-employed read this $5,000 eligibility requirement section of the webpage and thought, okay, yeah, my business brought in over $5,000 last year in 2019, I should be fine. And as a result, they applied for the benefit and received the money. And when they received the money, of course, they went ahead and spent it, because that's the whole point of this benefit, right? It was to give Canadians money to make ends meet in a tricky time. But now, as of December 2020, that's 9 months after this initial application happened, the CRA is sending out letters to these very same people saying, hey, you know what, you didn't actually meet that $5,000 minimum income requirement for 2019 in order to receive the benefit. And as a result, we'd like our money back. And that could be up to $14,000 if they applied for every single CERB period, thinking that they were eligible. And to make matters even worse, the CRA is suggesting that they pay this back by December 31st this month in order to make sure that they're not given some tax slip that has inaccurate information. So you must be thinking, what gives? These people added up their amounts and they saw that they made over $5,000 in 2019, but now the CRA is coming back and saying, hey, you didn't actually do that. So what's going on here? Like I said before, it has to do with that word income and the interpretation of the word. When some of these CERB recipients saw that word income, they thought, okay, I'm going to take all of the money that my business made this year, whatever amounts entered my account, and I'm going to add that all together to come up with my income. And if that's over $5,000, I should be eligible and I'm going to apply. But now the CRA is saying, hey, you know what? No, that's not the way that we interpret that word income. It's not all of the money you've received. It's all of the money you've received minus the expenses that you've also had to pay for your business. This is the difference between gross income, which is all of the income that you've received, and net income, which is all of the income that you've received minus your expenses to get that net income number. As you may already know, small businesses or self-employed people, they're going to be making money on their own, but of course they're going to have expenses that they need to subtract from this number to find out how much money they actually made when they consider how much money they spent to make that money. So that is exactly the confusion. When some people saw income on that CRA page, they thought, okay, I'm going to use my gross income number. And other people thought, okay, no, this actually means, and this is what the CRA is saying, that we have to count our net income. So there's the root of the confusion. Now, a lot of people who received this letter saying, hey, you have to pay back all of your CERB, they're saying that it's not fair that the CRA didn't make their wording more clear on the website. You'll remember when we just read through it, it didn't say net income, and it didn't also say gross income. It just said the blanket word income. You had to meet that $5,000 income requirement in 2019 or in the first few months of 2020. This puts these people in a pretty tricky situation because now the CRA has come out and said, you know what, we didn't change any rules. It was implied through the word income that it was your net income and not your gross income, and you're going to have to pay it back. In the CTV article that reported on this, they talked of a potential lawsuit that some people who are in this predicament could bring to the CRA. But at the same time, the legal fees that might be involved in doing so could surpass the amount they're required to pay back. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do in most situations. But that is exactly where things stand as of now. It seems that these people are going to be required to pay this money back. However, there is a little bit of a silver lining here because even if you have to pay this back and you don't have the money now, it seems the CRA will be pretty flexible with the way you go about paying back this money. If your application was in good faith and you didn't claim anything that wasn't true and you knew it wasn't true, then it seems that you're not going to have to pay any interest on this money, which is a benefit. Also, in a previous video, I talked about the way that the CRA is going to be allowing people to break up their repayments into a payment plan. Instead of having to do one big lump sum of like $14,000, you can split it up into a situation that works for you in order to be paying on a monthly basis over the course of a couple different years. If you or anyone you know is in this situation and they're going to have to come up with some sort of repayment plan, I've linked that video down there in the description and you can take a look at it and how you can set up this repayment plan instead of having to pay a big lump sum $14,000. But I'm really curious about what you have to say about this matter. Do you think that it was pretty clear on the CRA's website that it was supposed to be your income and that means your money minus your expenses for your business? Or do you think it needed to be a little bit more clear clear on that website from the get-go for the CRA to be requiring these people to pay back these huge lump sums. No matter which side you land on, let me know down in the description. I use it as a sort of way to get a finger on the pulse of what people are thinking. So I'm reading all those comments, so make sure to drop one down there. And while you're down there, make sure to hit the like button, because when you do, this video gets spread to tons of people who may not have been able to see it otherwise. So I'm sure that this could be very helpful for those people if you click that button. And of course, if you haven't already done so, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I'm bringing updates just like this whenever there's any news or information that comes out about Canadians and their money. So you're going to want to follow along by hitting those buttons down there. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you understand this situation that's currently ongoing right now, and I'll see you next time.